Good day, everybody. I hope that you're well, and I also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today, we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on author's purpose and tone. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, and then we're going to select the subject of English Language Arts. All right. So we said that our chapter is author's purpose and tone. Our subject is English Language Arts. We're doing grade 7. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of author's purpose and tone is to identify author's purpose and which sentence is more formal. Which sentence is more formal? So that is going to be our lessons for today under our chapter of author's purpose and tone. All right. So when it comes to author's purpose and tone, right? The within a sentence, right? Author's purpose, if you even look at the word purpose and tone, the purpose, it usually tells us what he or she hopes to accomplish within a given text. All right. So once again, we said that an author's purpose is what he or she hopes to accomplish within a given text. What he or she hopes to accomplish within a given text. And when it comes to the author's purpose, you can determine an author's purpose by just looking at the type of words, phrases, and sentences that an author chooses to include within a text. And when an author writes, so when authors write, they write to persuade. It's like they want to persuade the reader. They often then state their arguments or they state their positions directly and they provide evidence to support those positions. So, with them providing evidence to support their positions, they may state their position with words like should, must, best, or worst. So, once again, when an author writes, he writes to persuade or she writes to persuade. And when they write to persuade, they often state their argument or they state their positions directly and they provide evidence to support those positions. All right. And we see that when it comes to them providing evidence to support their positions, right? They may state the positions with words like should and must and best or worse. And they may also include to call to action, such as contact your local representative today. But we are going to find out within our lesson today how we can identify or how we can even see the author's purpose and tone within a given text. All right. So when it also comes to writing and writing to when it comes to the purpose, the author's purpose, when authors write to inform, then they often provide facts, they provide definitions, they provide examples, and they provide details about the history of this specific topic that they are discussing or talking about. All right. So once again, we see that an author's purpose is what he or she hopes to accomplish within a given text, right? Because remember, we have a text or we have text whether it's in stories, whether it is in books, short stories, long stories, whether it's in books. But you basically have that text. Remember, a text is only a short piece of, let's say, either a book or something that is taken, right? And you may determine an author's purpose by looking at the type of words, by looking at the phrases and sentences that an author includes, or that the author chooses to include within this given text. And remember, authors, they basically write to persuade, and they state their argument or position directly and provide evidence to support those positions. All right. So we're going to, before we even continue, let's first go to aplusstudents.ca, and we are going to go more deeper into how we can identify the author's purpose, right? Before we even go to our test. Because remember, when it comes to even the author's purpose, right? Authors can also write to describe. They use factual things, they use definitions to describe, explanations, examples, right? And they give us a deeper meaning, like history of the specific topic that they are basically focusing on. All right. So now we're going to aplusstudents.ca, and we're going to identify the author's purpose. And we see that an author's purpose is what he or she hopes to accomplish within a given text. You can either determine an author's purpose by looking at the type of words, the phrases, or sentences that an author chooses to include within a given text, within a given story. And when authors write to persuade, right? Because remember, they are persuading you to read some more or to do something, right? Then they often state their arguments or they state their positions directly and provide evidence to support those positions. And they may state their positions with words like should, must, best, or worse. And there's different ways, right, in which, the author's purpose can also basically be shown. So if the author, right, or when the author writes to inform us about something. So when the author writes to inform us about something, because remember, there's different ways when an author writes. He writes to persuade, he writes to inform, then he's explaining something, then he's describing something. So we need to basically know the difference between it. So when an author writes to inform us about something, then they use facts. Because remember, if somebody or something wants to inform you about something, the last thing you want is my opinionated thing. Facts are things that authors and writers, they need to give you facts if they want to inform you about something. Let's say, for example, like news reporters, they are informing us about whatever that's happening in the world. They're informing us about whatever that's happening within our cities, right? Which means that they need to provide facts. Certain things, they need to give us definitions. They need to define a few things. They need to give us examples and details about the history of a specific topic. All right. So we see that when an author tries to inform us about something, he provides facts, he provides definitions, he provides examples, and he also gives us details about the history of a topic. Then, when an author writes to explain something, if he's trying to explain something, right, then they often break down a concept or process it into smaller parts or steps. Because remember, if they're trying to explain something, then they need to try and make it more in a simpler form for everybody to know and to understand. So, by breaking down the concept or then just processing it into smaller parts or steps. And then also lastly, we see that authors, they write to describe something. They write to describe certain things. And when they write to describe, remember when things are more descriptive, then we need to basically explain things in detail. So when authors write to describe, then they often use sensory details to tell you what something looks like, what something sounds like, what something feels like. And that is why I'm saying describe, you need to be descriptive. You need to give us a descriptive idea of whatever that's going on. All right. So once again, we see that an author that likes to describe, they often use sensory details. Remember, sensory details are to do with our senses. It's tasting, it's smelling, it's touching, it's hearing, it's seeing, right? So they often use the sensory details to tell us what something looks like. That is why we're saying they not need to be descriptive. They're describing. Because if I were to say, okay, describe how your friend looks, then you're going to give us a descriptive, basically idea or descriptive yes idea of how your friend looks like step by step, more in a sensory way. My friend looks like this, her hair is like that, her body shape is like this, her color is this. So you're being descriptive, right? So we need to, when it comes to the author's purpose, we need to know what or how the author basically uses in order to explain something easy, just writing about the purpose, what he's hoping to accomplish. Is the author basically just trying to persuade us by setting arguments or positions directly providing evidence and supporting? Is the author informing us about certain things? Is the author trying to explain something? Or do I have to describe something in a manner that is more descriptive? Right? All right. So now, if we look at this text, right? Review the text. It says, we are excited to tell all students about this year's fundraiser. Instead of asking you to sell magazines or candy, we are holding an online readathon. We can't do this without you. To meet our fundraising goal of $5,000, we need all students to register online and create an account. Next, invite sponsors via email or social media. Sponsors can pledge a dollar amount for every hour that you read, or they can pledge a fixed amount. Improve your reading ability and support your school at the same time. Get started today. All right. Say, based on that text that we just read, right? They're about to have a fundraiser. They came up with something that they want to do so that people can sponsor them, right? They are basically encouraging people to also read by having this readathon. But they're making it so exciting in a way that it is online, right? And that is part of the fundraiser. So now if we look at that, right? We need to say what the author is trying to use. Is it the author trying to inform us about something? Is the author trying to explain something? Or is the author trying to describe or persuade us in doing something? So if we look at what they basically said, remember we said that the author basically says that it is a readathon. So which means that the author is encouraging us or encouraging students to read, but also to register, because part of the registration is that financially, the more students that register, the more, for example, finances they might be getting, right? So this is more, it's more informing us. It's more informing us as to what is about to happen. Let's look at this next one. It says, I become aware for the first time today of the immense silence in which I am lost. Not a silence so much as stillness, for there are a few sounds, the creak of some bird in a juniper tree, an eddy of wind which passes and fades like a sigh, the ticking of the watch on my wrist, slight noises which exaggerate my sense of the surroundings, overwhelming peace if I look at the small device strapped to my wrist, the numbers even the number wrist strapped to my wrist, the numbers, even the sweeping second hand seem meaningless, almost ridiculous. No travelers, no campers, no wanderers have come to this part of the desert. Today, and for a few moments, I feel and realize that I am very much alone. And if we look at this text that the author writes, here the author is being descriptive because they are describing a lot of things. The author is describing how immensely, we can't even say if they are lonely or just they just being alone or they're just being a lonesome, that the author is. So they're describing how every sound or basically they're describing how something looks and how something is based on even relating it to their moods or how they feel. So it's more being descriptive. All right. So we see that in that text, the author is being more descriptive, right? One more text, and then we're going to our text. It says, Call of the Wild has been arranging five-star luxury safaris in Tanzania for more than 20 years. We customize every tour to the particular needs and desires of our clients. Do you want to see the majestic wildlife in Serengeti National Park? Climb Kilimanjaro? Visit Ngorongoro Crater? Do you do all three? We have the safari package for you at a price that fits your budget. Tame your thirst for adventure with Call of the World. Our office has a dedicated staff ready to take your call. Book your luxury safari today. All right. So if we look at the text, right? Remember, we said that the author is either trying to persuade us, is trying to inform us, explain something, or describe something, right? Based on the a review of the text, it is like the author is informing us about the luxury safari that they have in Tanzania. They're giving us information about it. They're telling us what perks there are to the trip that they might be taking, the package, right? So that is basically giving us, informing us, but also urging us to book a luxury safari. All right, so now we're going to our test where we're going to identify the author's purpose. We need to read the text, right? And we need to say which author's purpose is suggested by the text. I became aware for the first time today, of the immense silence in which I am lost. Not a silence so much as a stillness, for there are a few sounds: the creak of some bird in juniper tree, an eddy of wind which passes and faded like a sigh, the ticking of the watch on my wrist, slight noises which exaggerate my sense of the surrounding overwhelming peace. If I look at the small device strapped to my wrist, the numbers, even the sweeping second hand, seem meaningless, almost ridiculous. No travelers, no campers, no wanderers have come to this part of the desert today, and for a few moments I feel and realize that I am very much alone. If we look at that text, right, or if we read that text, we need to say which author's purpose is being suggested by this text. Is it option one, to describe how it feels to be in the desert of in a desert wilderness? Or is it to convince readers that the desert is a beautiful place? So we need to say, is it option one, to describe how we feel to be in a desert wilderness, or is it to convince readers that the desert is a beautiful place? Which one is correct? Option one or option two? We need to choose the correct one. All right. And if we were to choose our correct option, and then we will say that the author is trying to describe how it feels to be in the desert wilderness. It's peaceful, it is lonely. right? And option one is correct. All right, if we look at the next one, it says, I became aware, or I become aware for the first time today of the immense silence in which I am lost. Not a silence so much as a stillness, for there are few sounds, the creaks of some bird in a juniper tree, an eddy of wind which passes and fades like a sigh, the ticking of the watch on my wrist, slight noises which exaggerate my sense of the surrounding overwhelming peace. If I look at the small device strapped to my wrist, the numbers, even the sweeping second hand, seem meaningless, almost ridiculous. No travelers, no campers, no wanderers have come to this part of the desert today, and for a few moments I realize that I am much alone. We now need to say which best shows that the author's purpose is to describe how it feels to be in the desert wilderness. Is it option one? The author includes sensory details like the creak of some birds to help the reader imagine the scene. Or option two, the author uses formal language such as small device. So, which option, option one or option two, gives us the idea that the author's purpose is to describe how it feels to be in the desert wilderness? Option one or option two? And if we were to select the correct option, then we would choose option one. Because remember, we said that if an author uses the purpose to describe, then we need to use we need to use sensory details, things that they can see, things that you can hear, right, to describe your surroundings. All right. Now we're going to the next one. It says load the laundry into the washing machine and close the door tightly. Make sure not to overload the machine. Next, slide open the detergent drawer, add detergent, and then slide the drawer shut. Select the wash setting, whites or darks, temperature, hot, warm, or cold, and load size, small, medium, or large. Then press the start button. The washing machine will stop automatically when the wash cycle is complete. We now need to look, when we read that review, we need to say which best shows that the author's purpose is to teach readers how to operate a washing machine. Is it option one? The author lists specific steps that readers should take to use washing machines or to use the washing machine? Or the author includes details like whites or darks, hot, warm, or cold? Which one do you think is correct? Which shows that the author is trying to teach us how to operate the washing machine by listing specific details or including details like whites or darks, hot, warm, or cold. And if we were to choose the correct option, The author's purpose is to teach readers how to operate a washing machine based on option one. The author lists specific steps that readers should take to use the washing machine, which means that if you've never used the washing machine, by just following the steps, you'll be able to know what to do. I open the door. First, throw the detergent, then I throw the this, then I throw the that. So, option one is correct, telling us step by step what to do. All right, we need to read the text. It says, place 4 eggs in a large saucepan. Add enough water to cover the eggs by 1 inch. Slowly bring the water to boil over medium heat. As soon as the water begins to boil, remove the pan from the burner. Cover it and let the eggs sit for about 10 minutes. Then drain the water from the pan. You will notice, though, that a hot, hard boiled egg is not easy to peel. To cool the eggs, rinse them with cold water. Then, when you're ready to peel an egg, gently tap it to the counter until shell cracks. All right. If we look at that text, right, we need to say which author's purpose is suggested by the text. Is it option one? Is it to teach the reader how to make a hard boiled egg? Or is it option two, where they're trying to convince readers that making hard boiled egg is easy? By just reading that, what do you think? Do you think they taught us as readers how to make a hard boiled egg? Or did the author try to convince us as readers to that making hard-boiled egg is easy? What do you think? Option one, to teach us how to make an egg, or option two, to teach us or to show us how easy it is to make a boiled egg? All right. And if we were to select the correct option, we will say that the author is trying to teach us as readers how to make a hard boiled egg. All right. So this is now the end of our lesson on author's purpose and tone. We see that the author uses different words, different tones, different ways. He uses words to persuade, words to describe, to inform us, right? When it comes to certain information. And we need to look at the wording that he uses in order to get these messages across. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on author's purpose and tones. Thank you very much for joining the class, and I really hope you're going to have a good evening further. So, till next time, goodbye.